Hey, what's going on? This is my look at AEW Dynamite overall. Very great show. That's the good news. The bad news is apparently 3 different people got hurt, and after seeing the show, I completely believe that those 3 people are hurt. A couple of them probably badly so. So that's definitely a big negative on that. But AEW, their openings of their shows get better and better. They seem to incorporate different elements that they've tried out and have worked and now have combined them. So we opened with a Lance versus Cody vignette, an Inner Circle versus the Elite vignette, and then Jon Moxley versus the Dark Order. Because those are your 3 matches, 3 big matches for Double or Nothing on Saturday. And, you know, as we open the show big with a little bit of music thing, and the first thing you notice about AEW, where I think they've successfully separated themselves from NXT, is it's a colorful show. It's an energetic show, and a show that appears to be filled with joy. And even when they're panning the wrestlers who are in attendance for their crowd, a number of them have things dedicated to Shad Gaspar. It's just, the vibe is very different, and because it's recording when it's recording, and so it's daylight outside, it just has just a brighter feel. And the fact that the thing is in a football stadium, the whole thing just reads better. It just reads as more epic. And NXT reads like, when I worked a lot with theaters, often they would have a main stage space where they would have hundreds of chairs, and then they would have what was called a black box space, where you did smaller, less significant pieces, where you weren't expecting as big a crowd, and it was this blank canvas, but it was basically this black cube, and that's what right now the shows from the Performance Center are. I mean, that's what NXT especially is. It's just a black box space where everything about it feels less significant. So we're going with our matchups for tonight, right? A quick thing where we talk about Jon Moxley versus 10. Brody Lee's cutting a promo. We're going to open with Jon Moxley versus 10, which I think is a smart move, honestly. And Brody Lee's cutting, this is the best promo that he's cut since he's been in AEW. And I'm getting his look as his beard sort of fleshes out more and gets a little wilder, but his hair's pulled back. And he's doing this new thing where he's like, look into my eyes. I get it, it's Rasputin. And he's going like Rasputin as a corporate raider kind of feel. I get it. And some of the guys are masked to his side, and a couple are unmasked. And his promo's very simple. His charge to 10 is to not try to win, because again, I think it's smart. And I think it's smart to put this match first, because we know 10's not going to win, right? So he puts the charge to 10, hurt Jon Moxley. So they start off hot as soon as Moxley comes. And again, Moxley has a knack for knowing how to come to the ring. And I think the direction that he comes to the ring looks really good. I know that seems like a minor point, but it's not. It's interesting. He gets in the ring, hits that flying knee. The turnaround happens in a logical way, which is Moxley is dominating this guy. But then when the ref admonishes Moxley for something that happened in the corner that didn't happen fast enough to the referee's satisfaction, that's when 10 takes over. Ripcord cutter happens. Here's one thing we got to note. If the cutter is going to be QT Marshall's move under the charge of DDP, right? You got to find a ground move, a finisher. I saw at least 7 cutters happen tonight. I think QT needs to find another move. The cutter is now the super kick. is now the DDT. They're not finishers. Just my opinion. At one point, Moxley does like a quick boot to the stomach and a quick DDT, and I think to myself, isn't a DDT variation his finisher? It seems weird to do a DDT and then do a DDT for your finisher. He does a spike pile driver, a self-spike pile driver, which doesn't get the win, but then he does... I see that he has sort of modified his, where he double underhooks the DDT. Instead of doing it like Future Shock style or whatever, he lifts it and then drops him right on the top of his head. A lot of dropping on the top of the head in this show between this and Sammy Guevara. And again, in light of the injuries that are piling up for NXT and especially AEW, man, I hope guys are careful, man. That's all I gotta say. I also noted that because AEW's doing their shows where they're doing them, the screen behind them is enormous, and it's like a wall, and they are using it to the best effect. They have the AEW logo up there, and again, it's small things, but it makes the show feel spacious. You can breathe. It's open. It's not this black box space. I cannot emphasize how important that is for this idea that our show is bigger in scope. Very smart. Then we do a little business here at the end where Moxley gives 10 seconds to give back the title, and he's put a chair on the arm of 10. And after a couple of seconds, which I really liked, instead of waiting it to count all the way down, here they come on the screen to go, we're leaving. Basically, go ahead and break his arm, so he breaks his arm. Cold-blooded. And that is and that's our first kind of segment analysis. All right, we're going into the countdown to Double or Nothing on Friday. And we've got, for the rest of the night, we're going right into another match. This show probably had the best flow of any of the AEW Dynamites, where really they were not going to let you change the channel. With the exception of one time, every commercial break was in a split screen with the match itself. They were not going to let you turn over to NXT, and they were going to hit you boom, 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 boom. With the exception of the opening match, which had a little more intrigue because it involved the Dark Order and Brody Lee and the stolen belt and all this stuff, there wasn't really a squash match in this bunch. Even the MJF Marco Stunt match, which was next, didn't have the feel of a squash match, which that was very smart of them to do. Now, my complaint about this, if MJF is out there with Wardlow, why would Marco Stunt be out there by himself? It makes no sense whatsoever. Terrible, and it was especially exacerbated by their finish. So the match itself was really great. Marco Stunt made a little bit of a believer out of me on AEW Dark, and he hit that really beautiful uppercut looking knee thing. MJF, again, the guy's really hitting his stride and looking good. Just, it's the right balance of I'm letting the guy get some spots on me, but I'm dominating the match. MJF wins with this really cool looking double underhook shoulder breaker into a Fujiwara armbar, gets the tap. But then as Wardlow is basically going to town on Marco Stunt, the other guys are nowhere to be found. And then finally Luchasaurus comes out, and they have what you want, which is a confrontation with Wardlow, which isn't too overt. But there's definitely a look exchange between these two guys. And they've done this a couple of times now in the last week. And I think in the last two Dynamites. And I think it's very effective to sort of set the stage for what may happen at Double or Nothing, or even beyond, between Luchasaurus, who's a bigger guy, and Wardlow. Again, I think it's really great. But it looks asinine that the baby faces don't have anybody at ringside for Marco Stunt when MJF, who they know they can't be trusted, has Wardlow out there. Especially when we're in Florida, in the shadow of, Eddie Graham, who is such a detail guy. It's a very easy fix. You start the match and you've got all these people at ringside and MJF taunts them. Look, I'm going to send Wardlow to the back. Marco, do you need your little friends to help you? And then of course Marco's going to be like, no, guys, I got it. And then as soon as MJF is about to win, Wardlow comes out and they can still do the same business. And now it makes sense. Small stuff, right? It's not small stuff. This way the babyfaces don't look like complete morons. That's just my thought. All right, we're going on to the next thing. Cody versus Lance stuff. Great little video vignettes. They're taking advantage of all the things, all the vignettes of the thing that Lance Archer did where he threw out all those indie guys in that first. That was the first thing where you realized where Lance Archer beat up all those guys in that like sort of makeshift ring that was outside while Jake Roberts rocked in the fucking chair. That's when you realize that AEW understood what to do during this whole CV thing more than the WWE. That and having people on the outside. But they even had people on the outside of that little vignette with Lance Archer, and you realized the energy that it gave and the noise that it gave and how great it was. And then they pushed WWE into a corner where WWE felt like they couldn't do it, which is really stupid. They should just copy it and do it because it's better. Why not? Right? But you realize that AEW has really been on top of this stuff. And now we're going to have Jake versus Arn, which they're treating like a big deal. And they have a table between the two guys. And I think it's really, 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 really smart. But they tease it, right? Jake and Arn are going to do this thing. And then they have this really artsy promo with Darby Allin, and he's burning this, and everybody sitting at the poker table with him has got a mask on of one of the baby faces. It's fascinating and it's interesting, and it creates a sense of, here's an interesting word, mystery around Darby Allin, which is part of the cool. And then you have a Pac promo, which seemingly comes out of nowhere, for the benefit of Phoenix, which I think is awesome. Right? And then we're going to go into the match. Orange Cassidy and Phoenix. The work here is really top notch. They pick the right spots to make interesting, like the sliding drop kick into Orange Cassidy where he hits the roaming camera on the outside was amazing. And I remember thinking, oh, I wish we got a replay of that from a double angle. And guess what? We got a replay of that from a different angle. A weird thing here where JR at one point, when one of them hits a DDT, and JR basically goes like, oh, I guess you can't win with a DDT. Jake Roberts could, but these guys can't. What a weird fucking call. And then JR kind of did a variation of it later in the match. What the hell? I know JR just can't help himself, I guess, but I just don't understand the point of pointing out the physics of this world and basically like going, that's stupid that DDT's not a finisher. When we've seen cutter after cutter, super kick after super kick, and a million other things. I just thought that was terrible. Really terrible. By the way, the Jake Roberts and Arn promo, really great. It felt at times choppy, but I think that worked to its benefit. I know I'm jumping around just a little bit, but I really loved it. It's what I wanted, which was Jake cuts this really great promo to open. Arn kept him on track. Jake wanted to turn it into a Jake versus Arn thing at one point, and Arn did a really good job. Somebody else pointed this out to me, of getting it back on the business of, we're here to talk about freaking Archer and Rhodes. And then we can address stuff betwixt me and you. And then, Jake flips the table and the referees have to separate these two guys. And it was phenomenal. I just loved it. Anyway, so the end of this match happens. And boy. Phoenix wins, which is the right choice. Orange Cassidy is one of these guys. You've heard of guys that don't need the title to be over. Orange Cassidy doesn't need to win to be over. And they're using him in the right way. And then a brawl comes out with all the people who are going to be involved in that ladder match. And then a very scary spot where Phoenix goes to the top rope, twists, hits this thing, does this flying thing, basically goes straight up, straight down, hits the floor. Really, really scary. I hope he's okay. And this was another situation where we saw like low blows and cutters happening for finishes and all this other stuff. So they're going to have to sort that out as far as ring work and things like that and who's using what finisher. But I think it's safe to say that cutters are off the table, DDTs are off the table, and super kicks are off the table for a finisher. Yeah. So we're into the fourth part where we got the women's tag match where Statlander and Hikaru Sheeta. So you got the alien woman and you got the number one contender who's super over, and I like the way she does her deal against Britt Baker, who's really come on, and Nyla. In the commentary in this match was particularly good, where they brought up that, you know, Britt Baker and Hikaru had this moment where when they wrestled each other solo a couple of weeks ago, where Britt Baker's nose got busted wide open. So they did a good job of setting up all this stuff. And when they showed the vignette or when they showed the promo where Hikaru got hit in the head with the kendo stick by Nyla, when it initially happened live, it looked terrible because Nyla it pulled it. It did not look good. But in this one, I'm going to say that I think they sped up the thing just a little bit and maybe even added a sound effect to make sure it looked much better. I thought that was smart. The scary spot in question where Britt Baker undoubtedly got at least hurt, but probably injured, it was this double Death Valley driver burning hammer thing that the Faces did to Nyla, where they threw him into Britt in the corner and landed right on the leg. It was a really dumb spot. Guys just have to make better judgments, man. You just got to make better judgments about the spots that you're choosing to do. I mean, I don't mean to come down this hard on it, but it's for what? You have to ask yourself, for what? Is the payoff worth the risk? And in this case, it was clearly not. It was a spot in a tag match. But in a weird way, because Britt was just not in this match anymore. Nyla looked super strong, basically wiping out the two, winning with the Beast Bomb, which is the right call. But yeah, that spot, so unnecessary and dangerous. AEW, it's a hard balance, right? Because part of what makes them interesting is things feel much more up in the air and we don't know what's going to happen. But my God, save it. Like, I mean, they would claim, no, you got to go all out. You got to give the fans all the blah. The stupidity of getting very avoidable injuries. Do I really have to explain why that's fucking stupid to not? Sorry, I know this is a lot. It really bothers me, and it should bother me, and it should bother others as well. We go to the Mox promo, which again, one of the better promos that Moxley has cut. About, you know, they like clearly establishing that the Dark Orders are heroes. You don't care about your guys. Screw you. I liked it. And then we had the best surprise of the night, maybe the best segment of the night, Shawn Spears news. This is a guy I was thinking, like, he's one of these guys that works really hard to distinguish himself, but you can work as hard as you can within the limited thing you're given to do. But Shawn Spears news is amazing. And he makes an Insta match for himself, which is he announces as a news person And again, the graphics were perfectly done with the scrolling ticker tape at the bottom. Perfectly done. As the news person, he announces that Dustin Rhodes is retired. Then when he goes off to the side to camera 3 and does his editorial, then he basically calls for the match to be made between he and Dustin Rhodes for Double or Nothing. I loved it. They need to keep doing this, and it's a good look for Shawn Spears, and it fits right into his personality. I loved it. And the way the SSN looked like CNN, and loved every bit of this thing. It's a great bit of business. It's a great thing for Shawn Spears to have. It's a nice break for something different in the show. I loved it. Loved it. Did I mention that I loved it? And then they do make that match. So what can I say? Absolutely loved it. Good for Shawn Spears. Try shit. Try stuff and then keep up with it. That's what it feels like AEW is doing in general and with something like this. Now we're going into the end. Sammy Guevara against Matt Hardy. The match, good to great. A lot of head bumps for Sammy. The first time when he did the handstand to not get Twist of Fate, phenomenal. By the way, this was the first time that they did a flat-out commercial break, but they did it after Sammy Guevara came to the ring. So it's just like, your main event is next. And then they took the legit commercial, and then they came back. And then here comes Matt Hardy. The match was great. A little heavy on the head bumps, I'll say that. But, like, the match ended as it should have ended, which is Sammy Guevara is another one of these guys, in spite of the fact that he's won a ton of matches and lost very few. The only one I can remember him losing was to Darby Allin in a really good match. As he loses here, and it's the right call because you want Hardy to be over. But of course, that's the least important part. They cut to Jericho. They got Kenny Omega tied up or restrained against a goalpost, and they're going to waylay him with this bat unless Matt Hardy comes to save him. But how's Matt Hardy possibly going to get there in time? But then there's the Young Bucks, and they're standing at the barricade separating the crowd from the field. A couple guys go over there. They take high cross bodies. Apparently, I think it was Matt Jackson got hurt. So they're going to have to check his ribs out. But then a brawl ensues, sort of setting up the notion of, oh, okay, so this is what the match is going to look like. At one point, I think it was supposed to be a War Games, but now it's just going to be the Stadium Brawl, which I am very confident they can do something interesting. There's no way I'm going to pay $50 and or $60 to watch this. I just can't afford it, unfortunately. I got to find some way to see it, though. I'm going to pull some strings and see what I can get done, because they've definitely convinced me I want to watch this thing. And I will report the shit out of it if somebody at AEW, hint, hint, can hook me up with watching this thing. I will freaking go over every match, divide it into segments, etc., etc. In any case, here comes Cowboy Man running the length of the field. Again, a really good spontaneous call that I think completely worked. He runs across, joins the fray, and then they send the heels a-packing. But then our last image, and I'm such a big believer in what's your last image, our last image is all the faces together, right? The Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, Matt Hardy, but Hangman Page is separated from them, and the commentators note it. So this is one of the lingering stories for this match between the Elite and the Inner Circle. Really, really great stuff. What a phenomenal go-home show. And again, AEW continues to feel like they're gaining momentum, all injuries aside.